Wasabi wallet. Unfairly private.
LEDN.io is a website that allows you to deposit your Bitcoin and utilize a variety of different services, including savings accounts for Bitcoin and USDC stablecoin, dollar loans backed by Bitcoin collateral, and a product called B2X, which effectively uses loan mechanisms to double your Bitcoin on the spot. Today, we're going to take a look at what the platform is, how to use it, and the benefits as well as the risks in doing so. I am Ben with the BTC Sessions. This is your daily session.
Hodl the Bitcoin.
Before we dive in, of course, shout out to sponsors of the show. If you are stacking sats in Canada, an easy way to do so is bitbuy.ca. These guys have a super slick web interface, a really simple and convenient to use dedicated app for your mobile device, whether it be iOS or Android. And they also have an awesome kickback where after your first $250 purchase, they give you $20 rather for free. So if you're stacking sats in Canada, be sure to check them out, bitbuy.ca. Now, I live on Bitcoin and Bitrefill really helps me with this. I can purchase any gift card that my little heart desires here using Bitcoin. And I can pay on-chain, or if I choose to do so, I can pay via the Lightning Network, which I do prefer quite a bit, actually. It's very convenient to do so. Quick, cheap, easy. While you shop, you do earn sats back, and they have an excellent referral program where if you have friends and family that are interested, you can get some kickbacks from that. So be sure to check them out. Now, you guys know the Keystone if you've been watching the show regularly. This is one of my most used hardware wallets, and I love it because it is 100% air-gapped, meaning you never plug it into an internet-connected device. It is all done offline via QR code, keeping your funds safe and away from internet connections. This thing has a secure element. It has Bitcoin only firmware that you can upgrade to. And of course, it works with all of my favorites: Wasabi Wallet, Blue Wallet, Spectre, Sparrow, all of these third-party softwares. It's also pretty badass when it comes to multi-sig. So be sure to check it out. I do have a tutorial and the links for it are in the show notes. And finally, if you're backing up any important Bitcoin wallet, be sure to get it in solid steel with something like the BillFodl over on privacypros.io. If you're backing your wallets up on paper, it may not be the best. You open yourself up to things like fire damage, water damage, or somebody, including yourself, accidentally discarding the thing if you're not careful. So this is how I back up my important wallets. Get that peace of mind. Get it in steel with the BillFodl. With that, let's dive into the show. So before we get into the how regarding how to use LEDN, let's talk about the what and why and who is this for. Okay, so you can do a variety of things on LEDN. They, of course, have their borrowing. So you can use Bitcoin as collateral to borrow dollars, or to borrow dollars, which then are used to purchase more Bitcoin in a direct way with their B2X loans. They also have savings accounts in both Bitcoin and USDC, which is a stablecoin pegged to the US dollar. You can earn interest on either of those assets. And then they have a quick trade function where you can convert between Bitcoin and USDC if you see fit. Now, one of the bonuses of LEDN is their proof of reserves. And I'm going to read a little bit from their website about this. They say Bitcoin companies should be as transparent as Bitcoin. And we are proud to be the first digital asset lending company to complete a proof of reserves attestation by a top 25 accounting firm, Aramino LLP. LEDN clients can anonymously verify that their assets are included in the periodic reports. So these guys do regular proof of reserves, and they have a third-party firm, an impartial firm that comes in and audits all their assets and checks them versus the deposits of their clients. And you, as a client, if you are one, can go in and check if you had funds on LEDN at the time of that audit, that yours were included in the audit. Okay, so Nobody else is doing this at the time of recording this video. And, you know, Bitcoiners are notorious for, you know, they want to be able to verify things. And while there's still degrees of trust involved here in that you're trusting the auditing firm, it's still better than a giant question mark and just trusting LEDN. So I do really like that they do this. Now, let's talk a little bit about the risks involved. Now, of course, Bitcoiners always, the ethos is not your keys, not your coins. So you need to weigh the benefits versus the risks here. You need to understand them and then decide if you're going to use this platform. It may mean that for you, the risks are too great and you don't want to use LEDN at all. It may mean that you look at the risks and you say, well, maybe a small percentage of my stack could go in there. The other thing you have to consider is if you're using the loan products in particular, you are subject to the fluctuations of Bitcoin. And what I mean here is the loans are always denominated in US dollars, whereas your collateral and the loans that you receive, depending, can be denominated in Bitcoin, which means that if the price goes up, great for you. Your loan is in dollars and the assets that you hold and the collateral that you're holding has gone up in value, meaning that your debt is easier to pay off. However, if the fluctuations in price go downwards, that could mean you're in a situation where your collateral does not cover the outstanding loan or does not cover as much as it should, and you need to add more collateral, or you could be at risk of losing all of your funds depending on the size of the fluctuation. So please keep those things in mind. They are very important. We'll get deeper into those topics as we go. But with that said, let's get into the LEDN platform and take a look how it actually works. So here we are logged in on the LEDN.io platform. And one thing that you guys may notice is that it's not my name in the top right-hand corner. That is indeed my wife. Reason for that is I do use LEDN and I have funds in there. And as privacy would have it, I prefer not to show the balance of my accounts. And I can't really use a dummy account or anything. So we're going to be using her account because she asked to get one. So let's take a look, an overview of the platform and what we see in front of us. Any updates will be up top, so you can see that as of September 1st, the rates for savings accounts, the percentages that you will get for savings, and all of that up there. You can see that anything regarding my account is there, identity is verified, two-factor authentication is added, and all I need to do is fund my account. You can see the referral thing there, proof of reserves, little note there. Down below, I can see at my savings accounts, both for Bitcoin and USDC. I can see any loans that I may have for B2X or dollars. And there's some news articles down below. Along the left-hand side is my menu for things that I can choose to go to. So there's, of course, the dashboard that we're just on. I can click over to Bitcoin savings, USDC savings, the B2X loans, the dollar loans, trading between, converting between Bitcoin and USDC. And then again, a referrals page where people can go to sign up. Now in the top right, you can change your language if you're in another country, or if you drop down where your name is, the user profile will have all of your details, so I'm not going to click on that right now. The security tab will have two-factor authentication, so you can turn that on, and I would recommend using Google Authenticator instead of SMS, just more secure that way. You can also safe list addresses so that when you go to withdraw, it has to go to a designated address, which prevents somebody from logging in and if they get your password and then sending out to a non-approved address. Okay, so you can do all that. And then there's an anti-phishing secret phrase that you can do. So if somebody tries to contact them and pretends to be you and get into your account, you can also have that set up. So there are some good security protocols here. In order to use anything on LEDN to get funds in there, you have to deposit Bitcoin. You need to fund your account. You can do that two different ways. There's a fund your account button here, especially when you first get set up, or you can go over to the BTC savings tab on the left, and that will take you to the same place. But we're just going to click fund your account for now. And oh, that does take me to USDC. Actually, I want to go to Bitcoin savings account. And from here, I'm going to deposit some Bitcoin. So to deposit, I'm just going to hit the deposit button here, and it brings up a Bitcoin address, which can be copied and pasted into a desktop wallet if you have one, or a QR code that you can scan if you're using a mobile app on your phone. Now, I'm using Blockstream Green here. I've got it pulled up and ready to go. You can use any Bitcoin wallet to send to this. If you're unfamiliar with Blockstream Green and you want to learn about it, I will have a link to it in the show notes, but I'm not going to dive deep into how to use Bitcoin. I'm kind of assuming that you may be familiar already if you're watching this video and this channel, but if not, check back through my old material to get your brain around that stuff. So anyways, I'm just going to hit the send button on my mobile wallet. I'm going to scan the QR code on my screen here, and I'm sending over 0.05 Bitcoin, which ends up being in and around it's a bit over 2,000 US dollars. Okay, so I'm just typing that at it now. And once I've actually sent it off, it should pop up in my savings account after a single confirmation.
A few moments later.
Jumping ahead a few minutes here, we can see that my transaction has been deposited. I have a balance of 0.05 Bitcoin, and we now have options to do something with it. So, looking at the savings account, if I just want strictly to sit it here and earn interest on my Bitcoin, I can do so by doing nothing more. Just a simple deposit. It sits, it earns interest each month. At the time of recording this video, that interest rate is 6.10%, and that is an annual rate, but it is paid out monthly. So it's a smaller percentage than that per month, but as it compounds over the course of the year, then by the end of the year, you will have made 6.1% on the Bitcoin that has been sitting there over that 12 months. So now, what I want to compare this to is obviously, first up, traditional savings accounts. So you won't get this type of an interest rate on a regular savings account. I did a quick search, and the best quote unquote high yield savings accounts in September of 2021, which is when I'm recording this video, the highest I could find is 0.6%. Just in a quick search. In Canada, a little bit higher, you can see ones that are like 1.15, 1.2, something like that, but it's pretty negligible. So if you're just looking to simply save and earn a return, then this may be for you. Okay, now the other option, and let's just keep looking at the Bitcoin savings account screen here, is you can over here on the right, there's a quick trade option where you can swap your Bitcoin for USDC, which is pegged to the US dollar, like I said. Down below, I can see previous transactions, so I can see that I received Bitcoin into this account on September 13th of 2021. It's confirmed, all of that. Now, if I want to take money out, if I decide I'm done with this, I simply hit withdraw and give an amount and a withdraw address, a Bitcoin address, and then I hit request. It can take some time depending on when you do it. It relies on, it's a manual process on the other side. They also do require you two-factor authentication when you do it. So just be aware it's not an instant process, which for security's sake is probably better. Okay. Outside of that, you can actually go down below and there's a calculator where you can calculate how much Bitcoin you'll actually get on a single year, and depending on how much Bitcoin you have. So we can put in our actual amount of Bitcoin that is there. And so I can see that the interest earned after a single year is 0.0031 Bitcoin, which is 310,000 sats with a 5 million sat deposit. So it'll depend on what the current interest rate is and how much Bitcoin is sitting in there. Now, if you want to see what you'll get in a single month, you can slide all the way down to the left. In a single month, you will get, what is that, 0.0002, which is 20,000 sats, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, 20,000 sats per month currently. Okay. And that'll go up a little bit because those sats will go back into your savings account and there'll be a compounding effect on that. Okay. And on the other side of things, you can go up to 5 years out and you can see how much you would earn over the course of those 5 years. At the current interest rate, I would earn 0.0172 Bitcoin, which is 1,720,000 sats. Okay, so you can play around with this as you please. Now, as I was pointing to over on the right hand side, there is a quick trade option where you can go to USDC, in which case it would automatically be into your USDC savings account. And so the interest rate here, and it depends on the market, but at this point in time, it is higher than it is for Bitcoin. So it's 9%. And let's just jump back to Bitcoin savings. So that's about 2237 number of dollars. So let's see what that would return. 2237. At 9% in a single year, you'll get an extra $200. So by the end of the year, you'd have 2438. Each month, you're getting about $16 added based on the number of dollars that would be sitting here. If you go out 5 years, then you'd make an additional $1,200 added in for a total of $3442 on your original 2237. Okay, so you can, again, play around with this calculator, but do know that the interest rates can fluctuate depending on market conditions. Let's take a look at some of our other options. Now, you'll see from the BTC savings screen down at the bottom, it says you're pre-approved for a loan of up to 1,113 US dollars, and you can double your Bitcoin with B2X. So let's take a look at those two things. Let's take a look at the dollar loans first because they're a little bit easier to explain, and then we'll move into B2X. So over on the left, I will hit dollar loans. And this is where we go to get a dollar loan, whether it be USD, which would go to your bank account, or USDC, which would just go into your USDC savings account, which you could then withdraw to your own custody if you chose to do so. So here, you select the loan amount and you can either type in a Bitcoin amount or a loan amount. You need, the minimum here is $500, but you can play around with that as you see fit. There is a 50% loan to value ratio. What does that mean? That means the loan that you will be offered that you can get, $500, is 50% of the value of the Bitcoin you have sitting there at the time. So this Bitcoin sitting there, 0.22, around that, is worth 1,000 US dollars, and they're willing to give me a $500 loan with that collateral sitting here. So there's also, you have to take into account, 9.5% annual interest rate. And there's a 2% admin fee, which amounts to 11.5% overall over the course of a year in interest that you will pay. So you have to weigh it and you have to think to yourself, the $500 that I'm going to take out, am I going to, in some way, shape, or form, be able to use that money to get more than 11.5% over the course of the next calendar year, which is the duration of the loan. You can pay it off early if you see fit, and there's no penalties in doing so, but it has to be paid before the end of the term, and you do not have to make payments in the meantime as long as it's paid before the year anniversary of taking out that loan. So that being said, let's talk about good scenarios and bad scenarios here. In a good scenario, let's use some not extreme, but let's use some we'll say common numbers that could happen. Let's say you have $1,000 worth of collateral, you get a $500 loan. Then let's say the price of Bitcoin goes up. It doubles over the course of that year, which is not out of the question for Bitcoin to do. So your collateral is now worth $2,000 and you have a $500 loan extended to you. You may have just sat on that. You may have done something with it. So we're just going to dismiss that $500. It's somewhere. You got it. You used it for something. But the collateral is now worth $2,000 and you owe LEDN $500. So if the price of Bitcoin has doubled at that point, that means you can pay off the balance of the loan, the $500, and still have $1,500 left over just from your collateral, not including the $500 loan that you already got. So that would be an excellent scenario to have. But what happens on the opposite side of the spectrum? What happens if Bitcoin's price drops? And it's a big one. Let's say it drops by 50%. One thing to note is that you will be contacted far before that happens, probably in and around 28, 29, 30%. In and around that realm, you're going to get notifications, emails saying, hey, you need to add more collateral here so that we can maintain that 50% loan to value ratio. Otherwise, they will be forced to sell some of your Bitcoin to get back to that level. Below that level, so let's say it drops 10%, 15%, 20%. In that range, you're still okay. They're not going to be knocking down your door. But once it gets around that 28, 29, 30% range, expect that you will get called and need to top up collateral. And you can do it prior to that. All you need to do is just add Bitcoin to your savings account and then top it up. Okay, so in the loans, it'll say give you the option to top up. I will show you that later. Okay, so let's say that catastrophic event happens. There's a 50% drop in Bitcoin's price. What does that mean? It means your collateral is now worth the same amount as your loan. Okay, and they want it to be double, right? So if Bitcoin's price drops by 50%, your $1,000 of collateral is worth $500 now. What does that mean for you? Effectively, you need to double the amount of collateral sitting there to make sure you're still at the 50% loan to value. So that means you would need to add another, looking at it right now, 0.224495, another full same amount of Bitcoin that was sitting there. So you'd need to double the amount of Bitcoin sitting as collateral, or you could get liquidated. They could sell a portion of your Bitcoin to get back to that value. All right. So keep that in mind. You need to be conscious of those fluctuations because a 50% drop in Bitcoin's value over the course of a year is not out of the question. In fact, it's done far more than that in the past. So that is a regular dollar loan, but I want to talk a little bit about the B2X loans because these are different. Effectively, you're kind of doubling your Bitcoin on the spot. I'm going to use some easier numbers to picture how they do this, but in the context of what we just talked about with the regular dollar loan, feasibly, you could use $1,000 worth of Bitcoin, get a $500 loan, withdraw that, use it to buy more Bitcoin, deposit it as collateral, use that collateral to get another loan for half, withdraw, buy more Bitcoin, deposit, and you could cycle through until you got to the point where you had doubled your money. You would still owe for the loans, but you would have doubled your money. Well, LEDN said some people are probably going to do this. We're going to offer it as a product. Okay. And that's what B2X is. So I'm going to use really simple numbers here to kind of show how this works. So let's say you have one Bitcoin. Effectively, you would get a loan, a dollar loan for the price of one whole Bitcoin. They would then go and buy another Bitcoin with those dollars and deposit it into your B2X account. So you would have two Bitcoins sitting there and you would owe LEDN the dollar price of a Bitcoin at that time, which right now is $45,400, somewhere in that realm. Okay. What happens if Bitcoin goes up? All right, let's talk about that fun scenario. All right, let's say that the price doubles. Okay, the price of Bitcoin doubles. You've got a B2X, you deposited one, you got a loan for one, you've got 2 Bitcoin sitting there. The price of Bitcoin doubles. Well, at this point, your loan is in dollars. It can be paid off with half of a Bitcoin because remember, the price is doubled. So it'd be like 90 grand at the time. But the dollar amount is irrelevant. Out of your collateral, remember, you've got 2 Bitcoins sitting there. You would only need to pay it off with 0.5, which means you basically got half a Bitcoin for free, minus interest and fees. Okay, but still about half a Bitcoin for free. Now, what happens in the other direction? This is where it can pile up quickly and you need to be very, very conscious of what you're doing. Because what happens if the price of Bitcoin drops by half? Well, again, that means you need to double your collateral. So here, in this instance, your collateral is denominated entirely in Bitcoin. Your loan is denominated in dollars. If they've extended a loan to you and doubled your Bitcoin on the spot, well, if Bitcoin gets cut in half, well, then you're going to have to top up and double your collateral. So let's just round it. Bitcoin would be 50 grand. You deposited one. They extend you a loan for that over and over and over again. But if it drops by half, you're going to have to double the collateral sitting there. So let's go through a scenario, a best case and a worst case scenario. We already did a really good case where it doubles, but let's do a best case scenario. Let's say you bought Bitcoin at the bottom in 2020 when there was a big dip. It went down to $4,000 and you did a B2X offering. Then you doubled 1 Bitcoin to 2 Bitcoin, and then you held it for the next year. And lo and behold, Bitcoin 10x'd. It went up to 40K, which it did in that time frame. All of a sudden, you can pay off that loan with 0.1 BTC, and you've got 1.9 left for yourself. So you basically got almost a whole Bitcoin, 0.9 Bitcoin for free. Now, on the opposite side of this spectrum, let's say you bought, and even though it wasn't available then, this is a hypothetical, but let's say you did B2X at the absolute top in 2017 when it was 20 grand, and Bitcoin first dropped in half to $10,000. You got to double your collateral. So you got to add 2 Bitcoin. So now you've got 4 Bitcoins sitting there. You have a loan for one. So only one of those Bitcoin is actually your original, is actually the loan, and 3 of them are your Bitcoin as collateral. Then what happens if it drops by 50% again? Which it did. It dropped down below $5,000 at that point. Now you got to double your collateral again. Add another 4 Bitcoin to that. You now got 8 Bitcoin sitting there, and you only originally had a loan for 1 Bitcoin, but it was denominated in dollars at the top. Ooh. And then finally, it did go below that. Now, it didn't quite halve from there, but it did go down to around 3 grand, which means you would have been called to add more collateral there. So you could have ended up in a situation where you had to top it up beyond 10 Bitcoin for getting a single extra Bitcoin, which is scary. So you need to be aware that can happen. And so how do you mitigate that risk? You just don't put too much of your Bitcoin sitting here. You maybe take a small percentage if you deem the risk worth it. Maybe 5%. If you're being generous, maybe 10% would be. Then at least you have the option of, hey, am I comfortable adding more collateral, or do I want to cut my losses early? Okay, so keep that in mind. This can snowball very, very quickly if you're not careful. You've been warned. Okay, you've been warned. So I am currently going to do a B2X loan here, just as an example to show you what this looks like. Okay, now I'm going to do this with let's see, 0.02. I'm going to do this with 0.02 Bitcoin, which is $900. Okay. And that turns into 0.04 Bitcoin, but I will always owe that $900 plus the percentage of interest depending on how long the loan goes on for, and the admin fee. So let's actually practice getting a B2X loan here so that you can see what it looks like. Now, I already have an available balance because we deposited into our savings account. And I'm not going to use all of this, but I'm going to take a piece of it. So I'm going to go to 0.02. Okay. And that will then extend a loan to me. The loan is for US dollars, which around 900, just over 900 bucks there, plus interest and 2% fee. And they will give me or purchase me an extra 0.02 Bitcoin. So I will end up with 0.04 sitting in my B2X loan account. Okay. That all looks good to me. Once I take a look at and agree to the terms of service there, then I do my two-factor authentication. Okay, and then it tells me, success, your B2X order is complete. We've transferred your Bitcoin from savings and made the Bitcoin purchase. Your real-time balance is reflected in your B2X account. Okay, so at this point, I can see that I have a B2X account here. I have a loan and it says funded, and I can click on it and I can see more details. Loan to value ratio is 52%. Why 2%? Because of the 2% fee, remember, okay? So I'm not quite at the 50%, but it doesn't matter unless there were to be a major dip in the price. If it got down, if the price were to dip like 30%, I got to start topping up more collateral. Now, when you do want to repay, first I'll show this. Actually, let's talk about topping up. If I want to top up the loan collateral, I hit top up. I can say from savings and I can put in a Bitcoin amount, or from external source and I can deposit via QR code. Okay. Now, if I want to repay the loan, I click here and it says, which repayment method would you like? I can submit via my Bitcoin that I have sitting. I can submit USDC. Now, if I don't have a USDC balance, but I could pay that way, or I could do a wire transfer. And if you're in Canada, Interac email transfer is available for Canadian loans. Please contact support for instructions. Okay. So this is how you would pay back your loan, and it would be settled to your savings account in the end. I think that pretty much sums everything up. I can see again, I can see my savings account now has 0.03. I can see there's a B2X right here, and I can see the USD value, which is outstanding, which is owing. If I had dollar loans, they would show up here. If I had USDC savings, they would show up here. And that is pretty much that. So hopefully this is helpful. Please, as I said, exercise caution when you're using anything like this. Weigh the risk for yourself, decide if it's something that the reward outweighs the risk or not. And it's not for everybody, but some people will enjoy it. I use it myself, but I'm also very, very cautious in how much I allocate to this as a percentage of my total stack. So again, keep that back in mind. That's that. Thank you guys so much for watching. As always, please do hit like, subscribe, and share. All of those things really do help get this content in front of more eyeballs. Now, if you want to help out the show in another way, you can hit up the previously mentioned sponsors down below: BitBuy, Bitrefill, Keystone, and BillFodl. Or you can check out LEDN in the links as well, and that will, of course, help the show as well. And if you really liked what you saw, you can always drop me a Bitcoin tip at my strike.me page. That is strike.me/BTC sessions. When you get there, you'll be greeted with a screen where you can type in any amount you want. You hit the tip button, you'll be greeted with a Lightning QR code, or if you click to the right, a regular Bitcoin QR code. With that, I am out. Have yourselves a wonderful day or evening wherever you may be, and I'll see you guys next time for your daily session.
HODL the Bitcoin.